And in our main topic here today on Mastering Dungeons, we are going to tell you about our characters. Actually, we're going to go a little further than that. We're going to talk about character creation in the game called Draw Steel. But before we talk about character creation in Draw Steel specifically, I want to take a step back and I want to talk about character creation for
Mhm.
RPGs in general. As we often do, when we look at a specific game, we like to use that game as a springboard for looking at more general design topics. So that's why I want to talk about character creation in RPGs on the design side of things first, before we leap in and talk about
Mm.
specifics of Draw Steel, because I think that it's going to be important to lay down some
Mhm.
context for some of the comments that we are probably going to make as we go through this character creation process for Draw Steel. How does that sound, Teos?
I love it. Absolutely.
Okay. I'm going to take a little sip,
Yeah.
and then we are going to say, what choices do games make when they design the character creation process?
Mm.
What do they need to keep in mind? What questions do they need to answer? And I listed a few here. I'm sure there are more, and each of these has their own sort of discussions, but I wanted to throw it all
Yeah.
out there on the wall and see what sticks.
Hit me.
So the first thing you need to do is ask, how do you deliver the elements needed to play the game
Hmm.
with the character for that player? So if you know your game is going to have equipment, and you know your game is going to have attack rolls, and you're going to have saving throws, or you're going to have feats, or you're going to have social interaction rules, how do you put in the player's mind and on the player's
Hmm.
sheet all of those elements? So you have to
And,
figure that out.
and here I think you're maybe saying it's sort of chicken and egg problem where it's like, how much of the game do I teach you before you make your character? Or,
Mhm.
and we've seen fifth edition, for example, say, you know what, in 2024, let's just move all of the rules to the beginning, right?
Right.
Versus a lot of games, and this one included, Draw Steel included, gives you a basics section. Then let's make a
Mhm.
character, and then we'll learn the real depth of the game.
Yep. Yep. That is definitely a huge part of it.
Mm.
Another question is, how do you allow players to design the characters both mechanically and narratively to get what they want,
Mm.
or I'll even add this, what they need
Mm.
to determine before play starts? Uh, so this is a question. This is another chicken and egg question
Yeah.
of, do you have them do a narrative thing that then ties into mechanics? Do you have them do mechanical choices that surround or push toward a certain narrative? Do you
Mm.
do it both ways? Do you do it intermixing? Um, you sort of have to answer that question when you design a game and the character creation involved in it.
And I'll add a bit here that I think that there is a question of whether you want your characters to be complex versions of a real person. So you're fully detailing your hero versus
Mhm.
are you sort of playing an archetype and having fun with it, right? Like Pirate
Yep.
Borg, Shadow Dark. It's a little bit like you're choosing a board game character
Mhm.
more than like a super detailed hero, right? I'm a
Right.
goblin thief that has a short sword and a rusted bucket on their head, and we're done. Go
Mhm.
play that. Versus,
Yeah.
let's figure out your whole backstory and all these other things. That's a choice that an RPG has to make, and that hugely influences how you write it, right?
Yep. Another question is, how do you balance character creation so that it's good for brand new players who've never played a role
Mm.
playing game before? How do you balance it for new players to your particular game who might be role playing game experts already,
Mm.
versus experienced players that want to maybe delve down into the game really quickly and get to the heart of optimization, get to the heart of deep narrative builds for their characters and so on? If you make it too involved, you might lose players who just want to play the game. If you make it too simple and streamlined, you're going to lose the players who want to dig deep into that customization side of character creation, either mechanically or narratively.
Yeah.
Um, how are characters going to change over the course of a campaign? Right? This is an important thing. How do they start? What does their character look like? When they level up, how does it change? As they gain resources, how does it change? As
Yeah.
they gain magic items, how does it change?
And this
Right?
is one
That question. Yeah.
I find myself again thinking of Pirate Borg, which a character class is on 1 or 2 pages with a lot of art sort of interrupting the the
Mhm.
legibility slash flow of it. It's decent on the legibility. It's got a lot of style compared to Morkborg, but it's still like, you look at this page and you're like, okay, my swashbuckler gets, one of these, let's say D6 initial features. I forget the exact number. And then every time I level, I get to roll a die on another table and I get that feature. And that's it. And Shadow Dark's pretty similar as well. It's just very, very little. And then you do tables like things like, you did a dark thing or whatever. And what we've all sort of found playing Pirate Borg is that none of these things, these ideas that were given, super fit together. They're
Mhm.
good prompts, but really we have to change them because
Mhm.
they get in the way and they don't all work together, right? Because it's just this random rolling process. And so while it was very simple and streamlined, we
Mhm.
had to modify it and play to make it work correctly, right? Is that
Right.
a feature? Is that a flaw? That is up to everybody individual,
Yeah.
but it's a design choice the game had to make.
Yeah. When you think of Rob Schwalb's Shadow of the Demon Lord and Shadow of the Weird Wizard, he plays around with that leveling
Mm-hmm.
idea by basically allowing multi-class as as a default.
Yeah.
Right. There are these different aspects of the character, and each time you level, you get to add this
Mm.
different aspect. So
Yeah.
you could travel along a pretty straight path to being, the wizard and then a higher level wizard and an archmage, or you can break off and you can do different things.
Yeah,
And
you have a
so,
level where you can say, do you want to be more orky and get your orc
right,
feature, or do you want a class
right.
feature? Like you get to choose, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting way of doing
Mm,
it.
yeah.
Um, but really, what you have to decide is if I play this game to the final bit of mechanical leveling I can do, what pace do I want this to go at? Do I want to front load a lot and then give a little bit to the end? Or
Hmm.
do I want a lot to happen at the end and have a pretty steady, more linear progression of what sorts of powers and abilities and strengths that this character or these characters will get as you go?
And that's so fascinating, right? Even within D&D, we can think of like third edition where the fighter got a feat at every single level.
Mhm.
And it was
Yep.
so about like this very simple chassis, but then you are customizing every single
Mhm.
level, 1 feat, and there are of course feat trees, so you could go down that chain of linked feats
Mhm.
and unlock all that and carve out what kind of a fighter you were. So it was actually fairly high complexity on a very simple. You could describe very simply, well, you're going to get a feat every level, but the complexity of it could be enormous if you cared to do it.
Mhm.
And by the way, if you didn't, someone will tell you your character's not properly built. That happened a
Right.
lot during those days. Um,
Yep.
it's such an interesting choice of what to do, right? And then we can go to AD&D where each class was just so simple and a fighter was painfully simple.
Mhm. And there's a concept in character creation that I think in shorthand, we call it the life path
Mm-hmm.
creation system. And it introduces, it's a way to introduce both narrative and mechanical um, benefits sort of organically
Mm-hmm.
as you imagine this character from its earliest days, and you just follow this system that
Mm-hmm.
gives you every step along the way. And that step can work narratively and it can also work mechanically. And a lot of people love that sort of system because it generally allows you to roll on a lot of different tables. Traveler being a peak example of that, where you could actually die during character creation if you rolled a certain set of numbers. Uh, but it, despite its the love that some people have for it, it has its own issues and it has its own problems. Uh, one of it being complexity. Another being what happens if you roll or choose poorly early in the process. What's your experience with that, Teos?
I'll add another complexity, which is page count, right? I mean,
True. Right.
when you really want to replicate someone's life, oh, I grew up in this kind of a village, I grew up or in this kind of a city, and who was my nemesis, and what are my parents like, and what was my occupation, what were my parents' occupations, you can go into endless numbers of tables, and that's you end up with a 300-page book that's just a life path, as we've seen various
Right.
times being created, including by like Janelle Jacquet and others. But when I think the thing with like the life path that sticks out to me is you have to go back to what the purpose is, and I think
Mhm.
people get lost in the um, nostalgia of it. That's so fun, right? Like, and I
Mhm.
get it because Traveler was so fun when you got a spaceship or you died, and that was so memorable. But it's not balanced, right? It's not. If I think if you take all of the players at the table, they don't all go, "Yeah, this was great. Let's do this every time." Some of them go, "Wow, that was not great for me," but it was very memorable, and we'll tell this story. But and so if you look at Traveler's latest edition, they don't have what they used to have. It's a
Right.
far. They still have a life pass system, but it's far more confined. And the question I always ask is, in anything like this, what's the goal? Well, I think the goal is to say I understand my character.
Mhm.
And I would want to change it even a bit more, which is to say, could I put something in a book that would tell me about who I am, such that when I sit down to play, I will have a better time and I will do a better job of playing my character to create a better experience at the table. If that's your goal, then you have to say, well, what are the ways to do this? And you might say, 13th age is one unique thing. Pretty darn good at that. And it's like a
Mhm.
paragraph that it takes to describe this system.
Yeah.
So how can you fight against that? And there's so many different ways. We could have an entire show on just life paths, but I'll stop there with, I think you
Yeah.
want to go back to those questions, and if you go back to those questions, you'll come up with a better method and a better piece in your RPG for it.
I think that's really great. And the reason I wanted to bring that up is because so many game designers now are so steeped in so many different games, and they get it, right? They get the benefits and the drawbacks of all of these different things, and they can look for, implement, and hopefully find ways to take the benefits of things like a life path system
Mhm.
and mold it so that it doesn't take up a 300-page book. It still gives a bit of flexibility, but it also still serves the need of getting something quickly on the character sheet without analysis paralysis and
Yeah.
without too many choices, and gets people to the game quicker.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to bring it up as we go through
Yeah.
draw steel character creation.
Yeah, I want to say one last thing, which is that on this subject, which is, in my experience, what makes the huge difference is if you as a player can come up with this one little idea, a little kernel in there that
Mhm.
helps you evaluate your character from there forward, right? If you think of like
Mhm.
a show like Andor, where we learn his backstory of where he used to live and how his life was changed at a moment in time as a kid.
Mhm.
That is the impetus for everything. Everything his
Mhm.
character does goes back to that moment. And he may make big
Right.
choices or whatever, but it's that piece. And that's the kind of thing that as a player, if you can have this kind of a moment, you know, and
Mhm.
reevaluate your choices and your decisions based off of that, that's awesome. You have the rock you can stand upon as a player. That makes it solid under your feet, makes it fun. That works.
And that is a perfect segue here into draw steel character creation, as we will see in a second. Um, so we use a step-by-step guide to create the heroes for draw steel. They say that these steps they feel are the best approach to make your first hero for draw steel, but that this order is a suggestion, not a hard and fast rule.
Mhm.
So while many players may like to build a hero from the backstory up, doing ancestry and culture first, some players want to start more in the present, so they might choose their career or their class first, because those choices are the most impactful on the things that your character can do in the game. And I think just even acknowledging that is such a huge important step in a book that is telling you, hey, let's create a character for this game, rather than saying this is the way to do it. This is the
Yeah.
suggested way. You have the leeway to do things differently.
Yeah, I both like it, and I found it a bit confusing trying to read it, imagining I was a new person, where you're saying to me, hey, this is the process, but oh, maybe you want to choose this or this other piece first. And so I didn't know, I'm trying to think of myself reading this the first time, what should I be doing? And so I wonder if they maybe could have said a little better as a try this default, but
Mhm.
don't be afraid to jump ahead to X or Y, which are common uh, important parts of your character, and you may even want to use them as starting points. I
Mhm.
heard someone said in our comments or in a comment in one of my videos that I think Matt Colville had said that complications, he almost wishes they'd started there. And I can see that because the complications can be so idea generating,
Mhm.
and yet they are step 8, in the
Mhm.
default. But step 8 might say that you are actually, inhabited by a fungal collective. That's
Mhm.
pretty defining. And you've already
Yeah.
defined all these other things beforehand. Maybe, so those, it's tough. And it goes back to what we were saying, so hard to even think about this order.
Mhm.
Let me for sure stop and say, if you've heard our disclaimer in previous shows, we're not saying, oh, this is bad and I could have done
Mhm.
better, right? Like I know I could not do better. It's
Yeah.
so hard to find an order of
Yeah.
things. And if I started saying, oh, complication should be number one, I would immediately rethink that within 10 minutes and
Yeah.
then have to go take a walk around the block.
Yeah, and this goes back to that question: who's the audience for this book, right? The audience for this book are probably fairly experienced game
Yeah.
players, RPG players. If this was a box set,
Mm.
a starter set, a learn to play, I would say definitely don't give any more detail. Just say do this.
Yeah.
But I think for this, it's an admission that this is uh, reliant on the experience and the whim of the player to decide what's most important to them.
Yep.
Uh, so the other thing the book does is offer a quick build option, and I think that's highly important for any game. Whether definitely if you are catering to newer players,
Mhm.
even if you are catering to experienced players, giving that option to say, here are your choices, but we suggest you do this, 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 and this.
Yeah.
Um, if you can get someone through in 15 minutes what might otherwise take an hour, you are going to appeal to a much broader audience than you would without it. So good on that.
Absolutely.
And this step one, it is is hilarious and intriguing and obvious, but also terrible advice, all in one go. And step one is think.
Mhm.
It says the first thing you should do is think about the kind of hero you want to play. And then it gives a list of questions about what you might want to ask yourself and answer before you start playing this character. And now, don't get me wrong, I am a big proponent of thinking. Some of my best friends think. Some might even say I
I
or they think
experimented
too
with thinking
much.
in college.
Yes, yes. So I want to be clear that I think that think as the first step in character creation
Uh-huh.
may be good for some people, maybe even a majority of people. But I think what's better than think is understand.
Mm.
I
Oh,
think people want to understand. So
mm,
rather than think, I would love to see here, maybe instead of a list of questions, maybe just one question,
mm.
which is, what's the most defining aspect of your character?
Yeah, and it's
Uh,
interesting. This section gives us like what, like eight or something bullet points.
yeah,
Things like, what did you do before you became a hero? What is your
yeah,
personality like? Do you fight with weapons, magic, psionics, or some combination? And the thing
mhm,
is, like, unless you know, these are good questions if you know the game already.
exactly.
Because then I can say, well, yeah, do I want to be, a talent or a tactician or
Mm,
what, because I understand what those things mean. And I think what I almost would have liked here is more of a snapshot view at possibilities,
mhm,
or if you're trying to, how do, yeah, like I think these questions are too specific. How did I choose to become a hero? It
mhm,
means I've already thought through other things and I haven't. And so maybe these should be more pull back things like, are you a reluctant hero? Are you a witty noble, something like more like higher concepts of different concepts that you could think
mhm,
about that could just whet your appetite, prepare you, lubricate the brain juices so that the next
mhm,
steps then can go better. Because I do think it is easier to create a good character when you've thought a bit about various possibilities. Do you want to be the diplomat or the damage dealer? I mean, 4E was so good with its roles, right? You could just ask what role, and that would help you greatly
mhm.
start funneling things. But yeah, there's
Yeah,
something here that makes it hard for me to go with what to understand it. um,
yeah,
I did try to go through these questions. And so I said to myself, okay, I want to fight with magic, because one of the questions is, what do you fight with? It said what I want
mhm,
to do outside of combat. I'm like, I work with criminal organizations. Before becoming a
mhm,
hero, I was a street rat. So I certainly can go through these and create this idea of a street rat who became a hero through happenstance, quiet, cautious personality, used to suffering, but maybe I've got a heart and a voice if pressed hard enough. I've distanced myself from anyone I care about, so no connections. And I don't
mhm.
yet know how I complement the party because I don't know who else is in the party. So I don't know how I could even
Right.
answer that possibly at this step one. So I
Yeah.
can get through the system, but yeah, I think there's something here that a little friction here.
Yeah. It's, that we use the term analysis paralysis when you have too many choices and you don't know which ones are best. And generally, that's used in terms of game mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Either when you're building your character, there are too many options that you don't know, or when you're playing the game, there are too many options and you try to figure out which is the best one, much to the detriment of the speed of the game.
Yeah.
And this is almost like analysis paralysis, but narratively.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it should have
Uh,
said, ask yourself the following questions, which is what it says, but maybe it should have added, but don't worry about coming up with anything definitive. Just see what sticks in your brain, right? Like when you think about what you fight with, maybe you think, oh, I don't know, it's either magic or psionics, but you don't have to choose right now. Just like,
mhm,
start formulating, get a feel, right? It's almost like a taste
mhm.
test of A or B kind of test as you go through these questions, but don't truly answer them or don't try to fully answer them right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think of all the various times I've tried to teach new games, usually D&D, but other games as well, to people and create the characters. And I want them to have one one guiding star
Mm-hmm.
for their character, this idea. And you can go astray a bit from that guiding star
Mm-hmm.
because you'll have to when some of your choices, your species, your background, your class, whatever rule element we're talking about, doesn't necessarily go straight toward that guiding star, but at least it gets you a little further into the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't want them to think. I want them to decide and then react, as opposed to really think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah. It's fun to ponder this.
Yeah. So step 2 is ancestry. Ancestry describes how you're born, as opposed to your culture, which describes how you grew up.
Yeah.
So each ancestry has one or more signature traits, which your hero gets for free when they take that ancestry. Then ancestries also have purchase traits. You don't get every purchase trait that your ancestry has to offer. You get a budget of points that you can use to select from this list of traits, because each trait has a point cost that you have to pay to grant the benefit to your hero.
That's a really interesting approach. So,
Mhm.
like, if I look at the polder, which is what I ended up thinking would work for my character, polder's sort of like a halfling.
Mhm.
My signature trait is Shadow Meld, which is a maneuver I can use on myself, and I basically just kind of meld into the shadows and can't be seen while I'm stationary there.
Mhm.
Um, and then I get a signature trait. My diminutive stature lets me get easily out of or into trouble. I'm size 1S. And then I
Mhm.
have to purchase traits. So I get 4 ancestry points, and different ancestries get different amounts, and I
Mhm.
can spend them on various things. So there are 6 possible things I could purchase. Some of them cost 1 point, some of them cost 2 points. And the quick build is I take corruption immunity, which costs a point and gives me corruption immunity equal to my level +2. And then fearless and graceful retreat. So fearless is 2 points. I can't be made frightened. And graceful retreat is I get a +1 bonus to the distance I can shift when I take the disengage move action. So I can move 2 squares away, or by default. Um, so that's pretty cool. And then there are other ones that I could look at that do slightly different things that are quite fun. I like all of these ancestry traits. They're cool. They're neat. They're very defining. I like them a lot.
Mhm. Yeah, and I am going to take Time Raider as an ancestry because it's one of the completely new
Yeah.
ideas. Uh, let's just step back.
Mm. Yeah.
Of these ancestries, every single one of them except Time Raider has an analog to other fantasy role playing games.
Right.
Uh, we have, to list them, humans, obviously, devils, understand what those are. Polders are the smaller human types. Orcs, okay. Wood elf and high elf,
Mm-hmm.
yep. Dragon knights, draconic humanoids
Mm-hmm.
that look dragonish. We know what those are. Um, the Mnemonic, which are more machine people.
Mm-hmm.
We know what those analogs are throughout other RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
Dwarf, pretty typical there. The Hakan are descendants from stone giants.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a Goliath sort of thing going
Yep.
on. Revenants, obviously, uh, they are of the undead type that have come back to the world of the living to finish the business that they started. So the Time Raider is the only one for me, at least, that seems to be out there and only, at least in terms of the D&D as the ancestor for this game, of something completely different. Time Raiders are travelers of the timescape. They're also called Kuranzoi, and they have 4 arms and a single ocular sensor instead of a pair of eyes. They have innate psionic abilities that make them very capable warriors. And if we go to the traits that they can choose, they start with uh, the signature is Psychic Scar. Your mind is a formidable layer of defense. You have psychic immunity equal to your level. and I can use 3 Ancestry points to purchase the following: Beyond Sight, Foresight, Four-Armed Athletics, Four-Armed Martial Arts, and Psionic Gift. So the last two cost me 2, but I am going to take Psionic Gift and I am going to take Foresight.
Cool. Yeah, and they're pretty neat. Like Psionic Gift gives you a choice. It gives you one signature ability, and it's things like damaging someone and pushing them or sliding them around. Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we are now into the uh, culture portion of our show. Do you want to stop here, Teos?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we've gone a bit, and I know you've got a lot of work
Yeah.
to get to, so we could stop here. We've been going slowly, but I think uncovering neat pieces here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so I think what we can do next show is continue to build our characters and look at the rest of these options that we not just get to choose, but have to choose in order to play this game. So we'll get into culture, we'll get into careers and class and kits and complications and so on and so on and so on. Sound good?
Huzzah! I love it.
Thumbs up from Teos, which means we are good to go. And I would like to thank everybody out there for listening. Thank you for hanging in there as we talk about our favorite topic, games. We have people who support us via our Patreon, and those people keep us going when we are down and when we don't have a lot of energy. We know that there are people out there who love to listen to our show and love to listen to us talk for whatever reason. And so we keep going because of those
Some of
patrons.
Those strange people came up to me at PAX and thanked us, Shawn, which was really nice.
Oh, well, I thank them back because we could not do this without you. Our patrons are divided into different categories. The first category are Master of Dungeon supporters. You are our most numerous, and we thank you so much for your support. We have Master of Realms supporters. They are, the backbone of this, and they get mentioned here in our show notes. And I'm looking at the list of just absolutely wonderful people who are Master of Realms supporters. Then we have the Masters of the Multiverse. These folks are very kind, but also very cruel because they love to hear me mangle their names, which I'm about to do right now. Agile Monk of Fantasy Companion Workshops, Keith Ammon of The Monsters Know What They're Doing, Lou Anders of Lazy Wolf Studios, Craig Bailey, Rudy Chainsaw Basso, David Bastiansen, Derek, the Bearded GM, Steve Bissonette, Merrick Blackman, Calvin Bridges of Alos, Robo Ballin, Kevin Criswell, Dead Inertia DM, Evil John, Evan at Nimbleco, Will Doyle, Andy Edmonds at nerdronomicon.com, James Fisher, Vedwalcles G, Scott Fitzgerald Gray at Insane Angel Studios, Ben Heisler and Paige Lightman, Sean Hurst, Hyperlexic, the Jaunty Mantis TTRPG podcast, Mark and Mary's Gaming Compound, The Mighty Jerd, JL at Tileforge, JR of The Twilight Perspective, JT Evans, Brian King, Jim Klingler, Gail Curmandy, Chad Lynch, Paul Mata, The Mathemagician, Jaron from Mathis Arcanum, Eric Mengi, Anna B. Meyer of Fantasy Cartography, Trey McLemore, John Mickey, Sean Molly, Falcon Neal, Tom Nelson of the Deck of Player Safety, DT Norris of DT and Dragons, Phil Wirt from the Philadelphia Area Gaming Expo, Philip and Lindsay, Frog Prince at Tentacles Squelching Wetly, Postfiction RPG Audio, Cardo Who Might Adventure, Robert Pasley, Vladimir Printer from Croatia, Ozymandias Rex, Runner Rick, Chance Russo at Drago Russo, Andy Shockney, Krishna Simos, Tim Smith, Spark from Dunor Games, Josh and Lee Wanika of the Tabletop Journeys podcast, Talus the Stormlord, Jeremy Talaman from the D&D and TV podcast, Tres, Ryan Truk, Joe Tyler, Marcelo de Velasquez, the Valiant DM, James Walton, Graham Ward, Jason Ward from Accidental Cyclops Games, Javier Waziak, Waterford Wizard, Chris Webster, Zach Types, and Z. Walt Winfrey. Thank you so much for supporting us. And thank you all for listening. If you would like to also support the show, you can go to patreon.com/masteringdnd. You can also help us out by leaving us a review wherever you listen to this podcast, including Apple Podcast, or go to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@masteringdungeons, and comment and like and stars and thumbs and all the good stuff that you can do there. Teos, you're back. What you been doing on social media?
You can find that video review of the starter set by the time you hear this. I thought it was really cool, and you can see sharing all of what I saw when it was being run at PAX.
Awesome. You can find me on the socials at Shawn Merwin, or you can follow the podcast on the socials at Mastering DND. So we're halfway through creating a character for Draw Steel Teos. What are we going to do now?
I'm going to work on the bottom half, starting at the waistline.
I am going to, I don't even know what I'm going to do. I don't, the list is long.
Did I hit you below the belt?
Yes. And it's the most I felt in 4 days.